The next piece we're going to work on is the movable jaw. Now these, let me get the blocks for those are 1 inch by 0.875. So you need to be real careful when you're laying this out that you lay it out on the correct plane. We need to leave a quarter of an inch tab or boss through the center of that. So 1 inch minus the quarter inch we're going to leave leaves 750, and that's 375 off of each side. So again, I'm going to mark this just to be sure I'm on the right plane, and I keep my mental stability as I'm doing this. I'm going to set this up in the vise, and we'll go ahead and start. This only mills down 125 thousandths, so we're not going to try to use a roughing end mill on this. I'll use the 3/8 inch finishing mill and cut this down to leave a 1/4 inch boss in the center. Movable jaw is in the chuck now, or in the vise, and I've got the my layout lines on the correct axis. Now all I want to do, I don't want to touch this side with the mill and mar that side, because it will be a finished surface there, but I do want to get right on that edge. So I'm going to take just a small piece of paper and just gradually work into it. This paper is 1.5 thousandths thick, so I'll account for that on the DRO itself. So we'll turn that on, and then I'm just going very slightly. All right. I'll raise the head back up, or the quill up. Zero out the Y. Move that 1/1000ths over. Zero out. Now we want to go in 375 thousandths. And that's lined up with our mark as good as I can see it. So I'm going to touch off, zero out the quill. This goes a depth of 125 thousandths. I do know from making the prototype, I'm going to cut that just a little bit short, but I'm not going to try to get all that in one pass. Get 50 thousandths or 60 thousandths to begin with. And I'm just going to go 115 thousandths instead of 125. Now I'll do the same thing on the back side, and that should leave us our 1/4 inch boss in the middle. Both sides have been cut on our movable jaw now. So I've located the center in both directions of the center of the boss itself, and we need an 832 hole in that. So I'm going to touch off here with the center drill, and this hole is to be 375 deep. Don't want to break the tap in there, so we're just going to start it good. And I'm going to replace that tap with a bottoming tap. Okay, let's carry this back to the workbench and see where we are right now. So here is where we are so far. we've got our base, our body milled out. The only thing we've left to do on that is our screw hole, and we'll put a little bit of a dress up, clean up on this end down here. This is our movable jaw that we just completed. And we'll set down in there. If it's rough when you put it in there, you may have to get your diamond files out and clean that, clean down in that groove. But that's running smooth now. This little piece, we need a hole drilled in it, and it'll go through there with the screw to keep the movable jaw in place. So that's the next part we're going to do, and I'm not going to try to video this. All I'm going to do is drill 11/64 hole in the center of this piece. Alright, the movable jaw is mounted in now. Simply have that plate in there. And we want to drill our housing back here. We want to drill it and the jaw at the same time. Now I can tighten this down plenty tight from the bottom, and that will prevent the jaw from moving out that way. But we're going to be putting a lot of pressure down on this drilling, so we need something to hold that up. I just happen to have a little work jack, mill jack that I had made before. This is a aluminum base. Started out as 1 inch. We know this our housing here is 1 inch. After I turned it down a little bit when I was making this, and all it is, it's a very simple jack. I'm sure everybody's got one in the toolbox with a little looks like a 5/16 screw in there. So I'm going to set that down in there. And as long as it don't protrude off the sides, we're fine. And take a wrench and put some pressure now. That jaw is not going to go, it can't go down now with this jack in here, and it can't go forward with the screw held there. So I'm going to get this set up in the mill, and we're going to drill down through that for, let's see, our screw is a 5/16 24, so we'll drill for that. This piece will be tapped, and then we'll clean this out for the. Let me back up. The shaft is a 1/4 inch, so we're going to drill everything a 1/4 inch first. Then we'll get this jaw out of the way and drill this for a 5/16, drill and tap it for a 5/16 24. Back over here at the mill now. We'll set our piece in. And again, as long as this is not protruding on either side here, take a square, what I've done is put a parallel across the bottom of the vise here, so we don't fall in between the ways on it. Now we're going to use our edge finder again. Zero out the Y, double check, be sure it repeats, and it did. And use the half function on the Y. Now we want to get it on our X-axis. That repeated. So we come over 100 thousandths for half the width of the probe, zero out again, then come in 375 thousandths, and lock our X down. So that has us 375 thousandths from the top of the vise, which will be halfway through, half the thickness of the movable jaw. Then we have we have it halfway on our from our sides. Now we want the depth on this part of the jaw of the vise, it's part of the base of the vise, is 0.75. The movable jaw is an inch. We want to come halfway that, so 0.75 plus 0.5 is 1.25. Now this is another one that is not extremely critical. However, if you want the parts to be, if you're making multiples of these and you want the parts to be interchangeable, they do need to be the same. So I'm just going to use my my scale to mark that point, zero it, and then we'll drill 1.5 inches deep. Now we're down into the movable jaw now, and this is where that jack under there is keeping it from moving. Now our screw, our jack or vise screw that's going through there, we want the pushing force to be at the bottom of this jaw right here. So we've got a choice we can make. We can either make our screw that's going in there have the same angle as our drill bit, or what I have done, what I did years or long time past, was take an old 1/4 inch drill, flatten the end of it, put just a little bit of relief on it so it will still cut. But then that way we can make the bottom of this hole flat, and we can also make our screw that goes in there, the end of it, flat. So again, I will use the scale just for consistency, zero out, and go down to our desired depth. So now we have a flat bottom hole. Alright, the only thing that's left to do on this housing, other than the cleanup of course, is to put the bevel on the end. So I'll be right back when I get that set up. Okay, I spoke a little too quick about taking this out and laying out for the bevel on there. We got a couple more holes we need to drill before we take the chuck out. I've removed the jaw now. That was in there with the jack underneath it. I've removed the jack, taken the jaw out. And by the way, when I drilled this bottom hole, if I said, I may have said 1024. That's an 832 on the bottom. Now, what we want to do is drill and thread this for a 5/16 24. Alrighty. That'll have a burr that needs cleaning up in there, but we can get that with a file. Now, before we move the table, while we're still centered up on the Y, we need to, this is our movable jaw. And we need a hole in that from the same end as this. We need to come over 0.280. We're still centered on the Y, but we need to come over 280 thousandths. And this is where the 10/24 dog head set screw will go in. Come over 100 thousandths for half the diameter of the probe. Then come in 280 thousandths. That will get the little dog-headed set screw. All right, I've put the end mill back in the mill now, and we're going to cut this angle right here. The drawings says a 28 degree here, and that's the way Mr. Pete did his in his video, but a 28 degree, keeping a 1/4 inch up here, actually put the bevel down into this cut down here. I didn't particularly like that. I don't think Mr. Pete did either. He made note of it in his video. So what I'm going to do is a very simple 45 degree angle on that, and that should keep it out of the out of this track that's down here. Now 45 degrees, I'm going to use my little angle block right here and zero it to the world, or actually zero it to my vise. Now that right there, now of course the complement of 45 is 45. So that's 45.05 degrees. I believe that will work. Now, just as you can see, there's a lot sticking up there, and I'm going to take it as slow and easy. I have me a mark over here at 1/4 inch, so I'm going to mill down to that. But there's a lot sticking up here. I've got it good and tight in the vise, but I'm not going to take very big cuts at all. That's not what I wanted to see. Okay. You drop back 10 and punt. Well, I've turned things around a little bit. Got it probably the way I should have had it to begin with. I'm going to leave that in the video. Hopefully a few of the folks that are watching my videos do so to maybe learn a little something. So maybe somebody can learn from that. As I said in the introduction, I'm making 4 of these. 2 will be gifts and 2 will be in the shop. I'll keep here in the shop. I'll definitely keep this one here in the shop. Some of that will come out when I put it on the sander to dress up all the edges, but it's not something I want to give out. So we'll try it like this and see how this goes. I think I've got clearance there. And I will definitely not be climb milling as I do this. Alright, that's to my scribe mark. And that might even be a better finish than what would have been in the direction I was going. But it's got some trigger bites in the side right there. Some of it will buff out, but not all of it. This will be a shop piece. Alright, next thing we're going to do is go over to the lathe and start working on our screw.